I never thought I'd end up working at Sterling Corp, one of the biggest tech companies in Seattle. Growing up in a small town in Idaho, raised by a single mom who worked 2 jobs, corporate life seemed like a distant dream. But here I was, Sarah Collins, 26 years old, sitting at my desk on the 47th floor of Sterling Tower. Well, technically, it was a cubicle. A very small cubicle. Collins, where's the Johnson report? I flinched at the sharp voice of Diana Pierce, my immediate supervisor and personal tormentor for the past year. She stood at my cubicle entrance, designer heels tapping impatiently, perfect blonde hair swept into a severe bun. I sent it 10 minutes ago, Ms. Pierce. I replied, pulling up my sent emails. Should be in your inbox. Diana's perfectly penciled eyebrows drew together. I don't see it. Send it again. And fix those margins this time. They're atrocious. The margins were exactly as she'd specified in her last 3 memos about proper document formatting. But I knew better than to argue. Right away, Ms. Pierce. As she clicked away, I heard the whispers from nearby cubicles. Everyone knew Diana had it out for me, but no one knew why. Maybe it was my Target clearance rack clothes among their designer suits. Maybe it was my state school degree among their Ivy League credentials. Or maybe some people just needed someone to look down on to feel better about themselves. Don't let her get to you, whispered Maria from the next cubicle. She was one of the few friends I'd made here, a fellow outsider in a corporate jungle. She's just mad because Roberts praised your presentation in the morning meeting. I managed a small smile, but my hands were shaking as I resent the report. One wrong move, one tiny mistake, and Diana would have the excuse she needed to fire me. I couldn't lose this job. Not with Mom's medical bills piling up back home. The next few hours passed in a blur of spreadsheets and passive-aggressive emails from Diana. By 6 p.m., the office was nearly empty, but I was still at my desk, triple-checking a presentation for tomorrow's client meeting. Still here, Collins? No plans for Friday night? Diana's mocking voice made me jump. She stood there with her designer bag, clearly headed out. Just finishing up the Wilson presentation, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. She examined her manicure. Don't forget about tomorrow's office party. Attendance is mandatory. Try to wear something appropriate this time. My cheeks burned, remembering last month's team lunch where she loudly commented on my discount store fashion sense in front of everyone. After she left, I slumped in my chair, fighting back tears. The office party. Another chance for Diana to remind everyone that I didn't belong in her world. Rough day? The gentle voice startled me. A young woman stood by my cubicle, someone I'd never seen before. She looked about my age, with warm brown eyes and a friendly smile. Her clothes were simple, jeans, a sweater, and comfortable flats, making her stand out among Sterling Corp's usual power suits. I'm Emma, she said, perching casually on the edge of my desk. Just started in marketing today. Sarah Collins, I managed, quickly wiping my eyes. Welcome to Sterling Corp. Thanks, she glanced at my computer screen. The Wilson presentation. I nodded miserably. My boss wants it perfect for Monday's meeting. Ah, Diana Pierce. Emma's eyes twinkled. I heard about her. Quite the reputation. That's one way to put it. I found myself relaxing despite everything. There was something about Emma that made her easy to talk to. Hey, want to grab coffee? I know a great little place around the corner. You look like you could use a break. I hesitated, looking at my screen. The presentation will still be there in an hour, Emma said gently. Come on, my treat. Something in her voice made me nod. Grabbing my coat, I followed her to a cozy cafe I'd walked past 100 times but never entered. Over steaming lattes, Emma proved to be an excellent listener. Before I knew it, I was telling her everything about growing up poor, about Mom's illness, about landing this job and Diana's constant harassment. Why don't you report her? Emma asked, stirring her coffee thoughtfully. I laughed bitterly. To who? She's untouchable. Her father plays golf with half the board members. Besides, I need this job. Emma's eyes narrowed slightly. No one's untouchable, Sarah. Trust me on that. There was something in her tone that made me look at her more closely, but she quickly changed the subject, asking about my work in the marketing department. By the time we left the cafe, I felt lighter somehow. Emma had that effect, making problems seem more manageable just by listening. "See you at the party tomorrow?" she asked as we parted ways. I grimaced. "Unfortunately, have to find something appropriate to wear first." Emma's smile turned mysterious. "Don't worry about that. Just be yourself. Sometimes things have a way of working out." I should have known then that Emma wasn't just another new employee. Should have noticed how the security guard straightened up when she passed, how she navigated the building with the confidence of someone who'd known it for years. But I didn't. I was too preoccupied with surviving another day in Diana's world. The next evening, I stood in front of my apartment mirror, trying to make my only nice dress look more expensive than it was. The office party was being held at the Vista, one of Seattle's most exclusive rooftop restaurants. Another chance for Diana to remind me I didn't belong. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. "Don't be nervous. Tonight's going to be interesting." I didn't know then just how right she was. Didn't know that in a few hours everything would change. That Diana Pierce was about to learn a very expensive lesson about judging people. The Vista's rooftop restaurant took my breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered stunning views of Seattle's skyline. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, and champagne flowed freely among the well-dressed crowd. I felt painfully out of place in my simple black dress from last year's clearance rack. Well, Diana's voice dripped with disdain. "You actually showed up, Collins, and in the same dress you wore to last year's holiday party. How economical of you." She stood with a group of senior managers, all of them smirking at her comment. Her own dress probably cost more than 3 months of my salary. "Thank you for noticing, Ms. Pierce," I managed, gripping my water glass tightly. I couldn't afford to lose my temper. "Not here, not now." "You know," Diana continued loudly, clearly enjoying her audience, "some people just don't understand corporate culture. They think they can walk in from their little small-town lives and fit in at a company like Sterling Corp." She looked me up and down meaningfully. "But class and sophistication can't be bought at Target, can they?" Laughter rippled through her group. My face burned with humiliation. "I should go check on the Wilson presentation," I mumbled, turning to leave. "Oh yes, run back to your little cubicle," Diana called after me. "That's where poor people like you belong. Not here among actual professionals." I was nearly at the elevator when a familiar voice stopped me. "Leaving so soon?" Emma stood there, but not in the casual clothes I'd seen her in yesterday. Tonight she wore a stunning red designer dress that made my simple black one look like a dish rack. Yet somehow, her warm smile was exactly the same. "I don't belong here," I whispered, fighting back tears. Actually, Emma's eyes sparkled with mischief. "You belong here more than most. Come with me." Before I could protest, she linked her arm through mine and led me back into the party. Diana was still holding court near the windows, regaling her audience with what I assumed were more jokes at my expense. "Miss Pierce," Emma called out clearly. The room suddenly went quiet. Diana turned, her practiced smile freezing when she saw Emma. "I'm sorry you are." "Emma Sterling," my new friend replied calmly, "though you probably know me better as Robert Sterling's daughter. You know, your CEO." The champagne glass in Diana's hand slipped and shattered on the floor. Nobody moved to clean it up. They were all too busy staring at Emma in shock. I was staring too. Emma Sterling? The Emma Sterling. Heir to Sterling Corp and notorious for working incognito in different departments to learn the business from the ground up. Miss Sterling. Diana's face had gone from smug to sickly pale in seconds. "I had no idea you were. We weren't expecting." Clearly, Emma's voice was arctic. "I've spent the past month observing various departments, Ms. Pierce. Getting to know our employees. Their strengths. Their challenges." Her eyes hardened. "Their bullies." The silence in the room was deafening. "I've seen how you treat people you consider beneath you," Emma continued. "Particularly Sarah Collins, one of our most promising young marketing analysts. Did you know her campaign proposals have increased our social media engagement by 47% this quarter? Or were you too busy criticizing her clothes to notice her work?" Diana's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. I was just maintaining professional standards." "Professional standards?" Emma's laugh was sharp. "Let's talk about professional standards, Ms. Pierce. Like using company resources to plan your personal vacation, or taking credit for your subordinates' work, or the fact that your father's golf buddies on the board can't protect you anymore because they all retired last month. The color drained from Diana's face completely. Your services at Sterling Corp are no longer required, Emma stated flatly. Security will escort you to clear out your desk. Your replacement starts Monday. She paused, then added with a hint of satisfaction. I believe you know her. Sarah Collins? My head spun. What was happening? You can't do this, Diana sputtered. My father. Your father already agreed to your termination when I showed him the evidence, Emma cut in. He was quite embarrassed, actually. Now I believe security is waiting. 2 security guards materialized as if by magic. Diana looked around wildly, but her former sycophants were suddenly very interested in their shoes. As she was led away, Emma turned to address the stunned crowd. Sterling Corp's success was built on innovation, integrity, and treating people with respect. Anyone who can't embrace those values should follow Ms. Pierce's example and leave. Now, the room quickly emptied, leaving just Emma and me. You planned this? I managed finally. Emma grinned. I've been working undercover in different departments for 6 months, evaluating our corporate culture. Diana Pierce wasn't the only toxic manager we found, but she was by far the worst. She squeezed my hand. Your promotion is real, by the way. Your work caught my eye weeks ago, before I even met you. But why? I gestured helplessly at everything. Because talent and hard work matter more than designer labels, Emma said firmly. Because I grew up watching people like Diana Pierce make life miserable for people like you. Because Sterling Corp needs leaders who lift others up, not tear them down. Tears spilled down my cheeks. Thank you, I whispered. Don't thank me yet, Emma laughed. Wait until you see your new office, and your new salary. She linked her arm through mine again. Come on, let's get out of here. That little cafe is still open, and I think this calls for celebration lats. As we left the vista, I couldn't help but smile at the irony. Diana had been right about one thing. I didn't belong in her world of petty bullying and social climbing. I belonged in something better. 3 months later, my marketing team's latest campaign won an industry award. I accepted it wearing a Target dress, standing next to Emma in her designer gown. We both smiled for the cameras, ignoring the whispers about my inappropriate attire. Because we knew something the whispers didn't. Success isn't about where your clothes come from or who your parents know. It's about what you bring to the table. As for Diana, last I heard, she was working at a small firm in Tacoma. Apparently, her father's golf connections weren't as useful as they used to be. Emma and I still meet at that little cafe every week, planning Sterling Corp's future over lats. She's still the same person who sat on my desk that Friday evening, kind, genuine, and completely unimpressed by designer labels. And me? I still shop at Target, but now I do it from my corner office on the 50th floor. Sometimes life has a way of putting bullies in their place. Sometimes all it takes is one person willing to stand up and say enough. And sometimes, just sometimes, the person you think is just a friendly new colleague turns out to be exactly who you needed in your corner all along. I stood in front of my closet, staring at the simple black dress I'd worn to countless business meetings. Tonight it would serve a different purpose as a server's uniform at my sister Catherine's celebration party. The irony wasn't lost on me. Ms. Anderson, my assistant's voice came through the intercom. The final paperwork from Meridian Technologies just arrived. Would you like to review it before tonight's party? Send it up, Jennifer, I replied, a small smile playing at my lips. Meridian Technologies, my sister's pride and joy, the company she'd inherited from our father while I was left to figure things out on my own. The manila envelope sat heavy in my hands as Jennifer delivered it. Inside were the documents that would change everything. Proof that I, Lauren Anderson, the family disappointment, had orchestrated the secret acquisition of my sister's $4 billion tech company. Not that Catherine knew anything about it. In her mind, I was still the failure who'd walked away from the family business 5 years ago to start my own company. Lauren's little startup, she called it mockingly at every family gathering. She had no idea that Anderson Digital Solutions had grown into a tech powerhouse, operating under different names and shell companies. My phone buzzed. A text from Catherine. Don't be late to my party. The other servers are arriving at 6. Try not to embarrass me. I looked at my reflection in the mirror. No designer labels, no expensive jewelry. Nothing like Catherine's closet full of luxury brands and custom-made dresses. But underneath my modest appearance lay something she couldn't imagine. Power. The party was being held at the Grand Plaza Hotel, where Catherine had rented out the entire ballroom. As I walked through the service entrance, as instructed, I could hear her holding court with her executive team. "Lauren," she called out as I entered, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Right on time. The uniforms are in the back room." I stood there in my black dress, watching her face twist into a smirk. "Oh, you're already dressed for the part. How efficient." Her CFO, Mark Stevens, barely hid his snicker. He'd been instrumental in helping Catherine push me out of Meridian years ago. Tomorrow, he'd be one of the first to go. "Since you're so poor," Catherine continued, loud enough for everyone to hear, "you can be our server for the night. It's the least I can do for family." The room filled with polite laughter. They all knew the story, or thought they did. The younger Anderson sister who'd given up her birthright to chase some entrepreneurial dream, only to end up a nobody. If only they knew what was coming. "The champagne needs to be served precisely at 8, Catherine instructed, checking her diamond-encrusted watch. "That's when I'm announcing Meridian's expansion into Asia. Try not to drop anything." I nodded silently, watching her sweep away in her designer gown. 5 years of dismissal and mockery had led to this moment. 5 years of building my company in secret, watching and waiting for the perfect opportunity. "Lauren?" Jennifer's voice came through my earpiece, disguised as a server's communication device. "The board just signed off on the final documents. The acquisition is complete." I checked my phone, reading the message that would change everything. Transfer of ownership confirmed. Meridian Technologies is now officially a subsidiary of Anderson Digital Solutions. The party was in full swing by 7:30. I moved through the crowd with a tray of champagne, invisible to the guests, but seeing everything. Catherine's executive team, drunk on success and expensive wine, openly discussed confidential projects. Her board members, uncertain about the company's direction but too afraid to challenge her, huddled in corners whispering their concerns. None of them knew that tomorrow morning, everything would change. "Ladies and gentlemen," Catherine's voice rang out across the ballroom at precisely 8 p.m. "If you could all grab a glass of champagne. Lauren, make yourself useful. I have an exciting announcement to make." I distributed the last of the champagne, including a glass to Catherine herself. She didn't even look at me as she took it. "Tonight, we celebrate not just my leadership of Meridian Technologies, but our company's bright future," she began, her voice carrying that familiar note of superiority. "Tomorrow morning, we'll be announcing our expansion into the Asian market, a move that will." My phone buzzed silently in my pocket, the signal. "I'm sorry to interrupt," I said, my voice cutting through her speech, "but I believe there's been a change of plans." Catherine's face darkened with anger. "Lauren, get back to the kitchen where you belong. The help doesn't speak during announcements." I pulled out my phone, pressed a button, and watched as every screen in the ballroom, including the massive display behind Catherine, lit up with the Anderson Digital Solutions logo. "What is this?" Catherine demanded, her champagne glass trembling slightly. "What are you doing?" "Making an announcement of my own," I replied calmly, setting down my serving tray. "As of 10 minutes ago, Meridian Technologies is under new ownership." The room fell silent. Catherine's face went from angry to confused to terrified in the span of seconds. "That's impossible," she whispered. "You're lying? You can't." "Anderson Digital Solutions," I continued, addressing the stunned crowd, "has acquired controlling interest in Meridian Technologies through a series of strategic purchases over the past 6 months. The board approved the final transfer this evening." Mark Stevens, Catherine's CFO, started frantically checking his phone. "This can't be. Anderson Digital Solutions, that's one of the largest tech companies in the country. They're worth roughly $12 billion, I finished for him. Amazing what you can build in 5 years when you're not busy flaunting your success at parties." Catherine's champagne glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the marble floor. The sound echoed through the silent ballroom, punctuating the moment her world began to crumble. "You're lying," she snarled, but her voice trembled. "This is some pathetic attempt to ruin my announcement. Security." I smiled, pulling out a leather portfolio. "Would you like to see the transfer documents? Or maybe the board's unanimous vote? I have it all right here." The room erupted in chaos. Board members huddled in corners, frantically making calls. Executives who'd spent years mocking me suddenly couldn't meet my eyes. Catherine's perfect party was unraveling thread by thread. "This is impossible," Mark Stevens stammered, his face ashen. "We would have known if Anderson Digital was buying shares. We would have seen." "Would you?" I asked mildly. "Like you saw the shell companies acquiring small blocks of stock over the past 6 months? Or the holding corporations gradually buying out minor shareholders? Tell me, Mark, how's that due diligence working out?" Catherine lunged forward, grabbing my arm. "Fix this," she hissed. "Whatever game you're playing, fix it now." I gently removed her hand. "Like you fixed things when Dad died, when you convinced the board I was too inexperienced to share control of the company. Lauren needs to learn responsibility, you told them." "Well, sister dear, I'd say I've learned quite a bit." "Ms. Anderson." Jennifer appeared at my side, no longer playing the role of server. "The transition team is ready to begin first thing tomorrow morning." Catherine's eyes widened. "Jennifer, but you've been working here for 3 years, I confirmed. Amazing how invisible assistants can be when people like you don't consider them worth noticing." The enormity of what was happening finally seemed to hit Catherine. She staggered back, her designer dress catching on a chair. "The Asian expansion. Tomorrow's announcement is cancelled," I finished, "along with several other ill-advised projects you've championed. Did you really think no one would notice the corners you've been cutting? The safety protocols you've been ignoring?" Her face went pale. "You don't know anything about the defective chips you were planning to ship to save costs." I pulled out another document. "Or the whistleblower complaints you've been burying? I know everything, Catherine. Every shortcut, every cover-up, every decision that put profits over people." The board members who'd been making calls began to drift closer, their faces a mix of shock and dawning understanding. "Ladies and gentlemen," I addressed them directly, "I know this comes as a surprise. Rest assured, Anderson Digital Solutions plans to restore Meridian to its former excellence. Those of you who've been trying to warn up the company's direction will find a much more receptive audience now." Several board members actually looked relieved. They'd seen the problems brewing under Catherine's leadership but had been powerless to stop her. "You can't do this to me," Catherine's voice cracked. "I'm your sister." "Funny," I replied. "You didn't seem to care about that when you were making me serve drinks at your party, or when you spent the last 5 years telling everyone I was a failure." Jennifer stepped forward with another tablet. "Would you like me to show them the company financials? The real ones?" Catherine lunged for the tablet, but I stepped between them. "Careful, sister. Assault charges wouldn't look good on top of everything else." "Everything else?" Mark Stevens asked nervously. "Oh yes," I smiled. "The SEC would be very interested in some of your recent financial maneuvers. Both of you have been rather creative with the books." The color drained from their faces. They knew I had them. "But why?" Catherine whispered. "Why go through all this?" "Because you never saw me coming," I replied simply. "You were so convinced of your own superiority that you never bothered to look past appearances. The sister in cheap clothes couldn't possibly be a threat, right?" I turned to the stunned crowd. "For those wondering about your jobs, don't worry. Anderson Digital believes in keeping good people. Well, most good people." I glanced pointedly at Mark. "Miss Anderson." Jennifer held out a folder. "The press release is ready for your approval." Catherine made one last desperate attempt. "The family name. You'll destroy everything Dad built." "No," I corrected her. "I'm saving what Dad built. You're the one who's been destroying it with shortcuts and corner cutting. Tomorrow morning, Meridian will announce its merger with Anderson Digital. The markets will respond positively because, unlike you, I actually know how to run a technology company." As if on cue, phones around the room began buzzing. The news was already leaking. "Security," I called out. "Please escort Ms. Catherine Anderson and Mr. Stevens from the building. Their access cards have been deactivated." "You can't," Catherine began. "I can." I cut her off. "And I have. The server you dismissed now owns the company. Ironic, isn't it?" As security led them away, I turned to address the remaining guests. "I apologize for disrupting the party. Please enjoy the rest of your evening. Tomorrow begins a new era for Meridian Technologies." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. The merger was officially announced, and as predicted, The markets responded enthusiastically. Anderson Digital's reputation for innovation and ethical business practices gave investors confidence that Meridian's problems would be solved. Catherine tried to fight back, of course. She hired lawyers, threatened lawsuits, even attempted to rally family support. But the evidence of her mismanagement was too clear. The board stood firmly behind my leadership. 1 month after the party, I sat in what had once been Catherine's office, reviewing transition reports. The view of the city was spectacular, but I'd replaced her ornate furniture with simple modern pieces. No need for gaudy displays of power when you actually have it. Ms. Anderson. Jennifer appeared at my door. Your sister is here. She's been waiting in reception for an hour. I considered sending her away, but curiosity won out. Send her in. Catherine entered, and I barely recognized her. Gone were the designer clothes and perfect makeup. She looked tired, defeated. The lobby security didn't know who I was, she said quietly. New protocols, I replied, not looking up from my work. All visitors must be cleared, regardless of their last name. She sank into a chair uninvited. I wanted to understand. All these years, watching you struggle. You saw what you expected to see, I said simply. A sister who didn't care about appearances or status. Someone who didn't fit your image of success. We were wrong, she whispered. I was wrong. The company, you've turned it around in just a month. I finally met her eyes. Amazing what happens when you focus on actual business instead of playing CEO. She flinched. I deserve that. I deserve all of it. But Lauren, we're still sisters. Surely that means something. It meant nothing when you were humiliating me, I said calmly. Why should it matter now? A tear slipped down her cheek. Because I've learned. Because seeing what you've built, what you've become, I'm proud of you, Lauren. Even though I don't deserve to be. I stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city where my company had become a major force. Pride is easy when success is visible, Catherine. Would you have been proud of me during the struggle? When I was working 18-hour days, building something real while you mocked my clothes and my car? No, she admitted softly. I wouldn't have been. And that's my shame to carry. I turned back to face her. Mark called yesterday. He wants his job back. And I told him what you told me 5 years ago. Get some real experience first. Stop relying on family connections. She nodded slowly. I've been staying with Mom. My accounts, my assets, are frozen pending investigation. I finished. Actions have consequences, Catherine, even for Daddy's favorite. I pressed a button on my phone. Jennifer, bring in the package for Ms. Anderson. My assistant appeared moments later with a thick envelope. I handed it to Catherine. What's this? She asked, opening it carefully. A chance, I said. A junior position at one of our subsidiary companies. No special treatment, no executive title. A chance to learn the business properly this time. She stared at the papers, then at me. You give me a job. After everything? I'm giving you an opportunity, I corrected her. What you do with it is up to you. But understand this, there will be no shortcuts, no family favors. If you want to succeed, you'll do it the right way. Catherine stood, clutching the envelope like a lifeline. Thank you, Lauren, for the opportunity and for the lesson. One more thing, I said as she reached the door. That server's uniform from your party. I had it framed. It hangs in my private office to remind me that appearances mean nothing compared to what you actually build. After she left, I returned to my work. Anderson Digital had grown beyond my wildest dreams, but success wasn't about proving others wrong. It was about proving yourself right. The company continues to thrive, now one of the most respected firms in the tech sector. Catherine started at entry level, finally learning the business from the ground up. She's actually doing well, now that she's focused on substance over style. And me? I still keep my old laptop from my startup days displayed in my office. The one Catherine used to mock for not being the latest model. It reminds me that true worth isn't measured in designer labels or corner offices, but in what you build and how you build it. Sometimes the best revenge isn't serving someone humble pie. It's making them serve it to themselves, one small bite at a time. The memory still makes my blood boil. I was 17, just 2 months shy of my 18th birthday, when my parents sold my entire future for less than the price of a used iPhone. Michael, don't be dramatic, my mother had said, waving the check in front of me. $1,000 is very generous for something that doesn't even exist yet. But SecureShare did exist. I'd spent 2 years developing the security algorithm, countless nights coding while my classmates were out partying. I had the prototype, the business plan, even interest from angel investors. What I didn't have, thanks to being a minor, was legal control over my own intellectual property. "You should be thanking us," my father added, his voice carrying that familiar tone of condescension. "Marcus Wayne is doing you a favor, offering real money for this hobby of yours. Now you can focus on real career opportunities." Marcus Wayne. Even now, 5 years later, the name makes me want to punch something. He'd known exactly what he was doing when he approached my parents instead of me. He'd seen the potential in SecureShare's revolutionary encryption system, recognized that it could transform digital communications, and he'd known that my parents, with their complete lack of tech understanding, would see it as nothing more than their son's time-wasting computer game. "It's time to be practical," my mother had continued, already mentally spending the $1,000. "Law school applications are expensive, and this will help with the fees." Law school. That was their dream, not mine. They'd had my future mapped out since before I could walk. Prestigious law school, corporate law career, country club membership. The perfect life for the perfect son. Instead, I watched helplessly as they signed away my rights to SecureShare Technologies, the company I built in my bedroom between homework assignments. The company that, according to my latest market research, should have been worth at least 7 figures even in its early stages. That night, I lay in bed staring at my ceiling, hot tears of rage sliding down my temples. On my desk, my laptop still displayed the SecureShare code, thousands of lines representing countless hours of work now legally belonging to Marcus Wayne. But they'd made one crucial mistake. The algorithm they'd bought, the one detailed in the official documentation, it was only part of the story. The real innovation, the breakthrough that made SecureShare special, existed only in my head and in an encrypted file hidden on a server where no one would think to look. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I planned. The next morning, I went through the motions of my daily routine. I ate breakfast with my parents, nodding as they talked about law school applications and their dreams for my future. I went to school, sat through my classes, pretended everything was normal. But as soon as I got home, I began implementing phase 1 of what I would later call Operation Phoenix. First, I emptied my college fund, the one I built working summer jobs and doing freelance coding. It wasn't much, just $12,000, but it was a start. My parents would be furious when they found out, but I didn't care. They'd lost the right to an opinion about my money when they sold my company without my consent. Next, I reached out to Samantha Chen, my best friend and the only person who truly understood what SecureShare could become. Sam was 18, legally an adult, and more importantly, she was brilliant at business development. "They did what?" she exclaimed when I told her what had happened. We were sitting in our usual booth at Cyber Cafe, the local coffee shop where we'd spent countless hours coding and dreaming about our future tech empire. "Sold it for $1,000. My voice was flat as I stirred my untouched coffee. "To Marcus Wayne." "That snake," Sam spat. She'd met Marcus at a tech conference last year and had instantly disliked him. "He knew exactly what he was doing, didn't he?" I nodded. "But he doesn't have everything. The core algorithm, the part that makes it all work, it's still mine. And I have a plan." Sam leaned forward, her dark eyes sparkling with interest. "I'm listening." Over the next hour, I laid out my strategy. We would start a new company, officially owned by Sam since she was legally an adult. We would develop a new encryption system, one that would make SecureShare's published algorithm look like child's play. "But won't Wayne sue when he realizes what we're doing?" Sam asked. I smiled for the first time since the sale. "He can try. But the algorithm he bought, it's essentially useless without the core components I kept back. By the time he figures that out, we'll have already established ourselves in the market." "You sneaky genius," Sam grinned. "Count me in. But we'll need more than just your college fund." She was right. We needed real investment, but we had to be careful. If word got back to Wayne about what we were doing, he'd shut us down before we could begin. That's when I remembered Dr. Sarah Martinez, my computer science teacher. She'd been the first person to recognize the potential in my work, and more importantly, she had connections in the tech industry. The next day after class, I stayed behind to talk to her. "I heard about the sale," she said before I could speak. "Your parents had no idea what they were giving away, did they?" I shook my head. "But that's not the end of the story. I need your help, Dr. Martinez." She listened carefully as I explained my plan, occasionally nodding or asking sharp questions. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "What you're proposing is risky," she finally said. "If Wayne realizes what you're doing, he won't. Not until it's too late." She studied me for a moment longer, then opened her desk drawer and pulled out a business card. "Elena Rodriguez. She's an angel investor who specializes in tech startups. More importantly, she hates Marcus Wayne almost as much as you do. Tell her I sent you." That meeting changed everything. Elena didn't just understand our vision. She shared our determination to beat Wayne at his own game. 3 weeks later, Shadow Securities was born, with Sam as CEO and me as the anonymous lead developer. We worked out of Sam's garage, living on energy drinks and determination. By day, I pretended to research law schools to keep my parents happy. By night, I rebuilt my encryption system from the ground up, making it even better than before. The irony? Marcus Wayne was struggling. Without the core algorithm, SecureShare was just another mediocre security app. His developers couldn't replicate the magic that had made my prototype special, and potential clients were losing interest. Meanwhile, Shadow Securities was gaining momentum. Our beta test results were extraordinary. Elena's connections helped us secure meetings with major tech companies. Venture capitalists were starting to notice. Then came the article that changed everything. Tech's next big thing. The headline read, "Shadow Securities' revolutionary encryption could reshape digital privacy." I was in the kitchen with my parents when my father saw it. He was scrolling through news on his tablet while eating breakfast, something about the article catching his eye. "Look at this," he said to my mother. "Some companies developed an encryption system that sounds just like Michael's little project. See, he'd stuck with it instead of selling." I kept my face carefully neutral as I gathered my things for school. Let them think about what they'd thrown away. Soon enough, they'd understand exactly what their $1,000 had cost them. Because in 3 days, Shadow Securities would go public, and I would finally step out of the shadows, revealing myself as the true genius behind both companies. Marcus Wayne had no idea what was coming. Neither did my parents, but they were about to find out. The day before our big announcement, I sat in my bedroom looking at an old photo. In it, 15-year-old me was hunched over a laptop, working on the first version of SecureShare. I'd been so young, so naive, believing that my parents would understand, would support my dreams. Their betrayal had taught me an important lesson. Sometimes the people who should believe in you the most are the ones who understand you the least. But tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, I would walk into the offices of what used to be my company, not as the teenager whose dreams were sold for pocket change, but as the controlling shareholder and new CEO of the corporation that had just acquired SecureShare Technologies. Marcus Wayne's face would be priceless, and my parents? They were about to learn that their silly app was now worth millions. I carefully placed the photo in my briefcase next to the acquisition papers. In less than 24 hours, the tech world would know my name, and my parents would realize exactly what they'd thrown away. The morning of the announcement, I dressed carefully in a tailored suit that cost more than what my parents had sold my company for. Gone were the hoodies and jeans of my coding days. Today, I needed to look like what I had become, the CEO of a multimillion-dollar tech company. My mother was in the kitchen when I came downstairs, sorting through law school brochures she'd been collecting for me. "Michael, honey, don't forget you have that Harvard Law alumni interview next week. And what are you wearing? That suit looks expensive." "I have a meeting," I said simply, adjusting my tie. "And I won't be making that interview." She looked up, frowning. "What do you mean? This is your future we're talking about." "No, Mom, it's the future you and Dad wanted for me. My real future is something entirely different." Before she could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from Sam. "Everything's ready. The press is already gathering." I grabbed my briefcase, ignoring my mother's confused protests. "Watch the business news today," I told her as I headed for the door. "You might find it interesting." The drive to SecureShare's headquarters felt surreal. The last time I'd been here was 2 years ago, watching Marcus Wayne unveil his revolutionary security system, my system, stripped down and barely functional without its core components. Now, as I pulled into the executive parking spot with my name on it, I couldn't help but smile. The security guard did a double take as he read my newly issued ID badge. Mr. Harrison, but you're the new CEO, yes. I enjoyed the look of shock on his face. The press announcement is in an hour. You might want to alert Mr. Wayne that I'm here. The lobby was buzzing with activity. Reporters were setting up cameras, tech bloggers hunched over laptops, all waiting for the big announcement. Nobody paid attention to me as I walked through. They were expecting Marcus Wayne to make today's presentation. I took the executive elevator to the top floor, Sam meeting me as I stepped out. Ready for this? She asked, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Been ready for 5 years, I replied. Marcus Wayne's secretary, my secretary now, looked up in confusion as we approached his office. I'm sorry, you can't go in there. Mr. Wayne is preparing for an important announcement. I handed her the acquisition papers. Yes, about that announcement, there's been a slight change of plans. We walked into Wayne's office without knocking. He was standing at his window, practicing what looked like an acceptance speech. His face darkened when he saw us. What is this? How did you get in here? Hello, Marcus, I said calmly. Remember me? The kid whose silly app you bought for $1,000? He straightened, trying to maintain his authority. Security. They won't come, Sam said, smiling. They answer to the new CEO now. New? What are you talking about? I placed my briefcase on his desk, my desk now, and pulled out a thick folder. Shadow Securities completed its acquisition of SecureShare Technologies this morning. The board approved it unanimously. Apparently, they were tired of watching the company flounder with incomplete technology. Wayne's face went pale as he read the papers. This is impossible. Shadow Securities, they're the ones who, his eyes widened as realization dawned. You're behind Shadow Securities. Technically, Sam is the CEO. I nodded toward her. At least she was until today. Now she's taking over as COO of our merged companies, and I'm stepping in as CEO. But the encryption system we bought from your parents was worthless without its core components I finished for him. Components that now belong to Shadow Securities. Or should I say belonged? Since we now own SecureShare, we own everything. He slumped into his chair, my chair. You planned this. All of it. You taught me an important lesson, Marcus. Never underestimate someone just because they're young. Now, shall we head down to the press conference? I believe they're expecting an announcement. The press conference was everything I dreamed of. Cameras flashed as I took the podium, reporters murmuring in surprise at seeing a 22-year-old instead of Marcus Wayne. Ladies and gentlemen, I began. 5 years ago, SecureShare Technologies acquired a promising encryption system from a young developer. Today, that developer is acquiring SecureShare. The room erupted in questions. I saw realization dawn on some of the tech reporters' faces. They covered both the original SecureShare story and Shadow Security's rise. Mr. Harrison, are you saying you're the original creator of SecureShare's technology? Yes, I replied. The same technology that, in its complete form, has made Shadow Securities the fastest-growing cybersecurity company in the industry. More questions flew. How did you build Shadow Securities? What happens to Marcus Wayne? What are your plans for the merged companies? I answered them all calmly, professionally, watching the story spread in real time on social media. Somewhere, I knew my parents were seeing this too. Right on cue, my phone buzzed with texts from both of them. Mom, Michael, what's happening? You're on CNBC. Dad, son, call us immediately. What is this about SecureShare? I ignored them. They'd have their answers soon enough. After the press conference, I went to my new office, the same one where I'd watched my parents sign away my dreams for $1,000. The view of the city was exactly as I remembered. Sam joined me, carrying 2 glasses of champagne. Congratulations, CEO Harrison. How does revenge taste? I took a glass, considering her question. Actually, this isn't about revenge anymore. It's about proving something, to myself, to them, to everyone who ever dismissed a young person's dreams as just a silly app. My phone buzzed again. My parents had arrived in the lobby. I'd instructed security to let them up. Want me to stay for this? Sam asked. I shook my head. No, this is something I need to do alone. They entered cautiously, looking out of place in the executive suite. My mother's eyes were red. She'd been crying. My father looked like he aged 10 years since breakfast. Michael, he began, we had no idea. No, I cut him off, he didn't, because you never bothered to understand what I was building. You were too busy planning the future you wanted for me to see the future I was creating for myself. We thought we were doing what was best for you, my mother whispered. Best for me? I laughed softly. You sold my company, my future, for less than you spent on my prom suit. Do you know what SecureShare is worth now, with Shadow Securities technology reintegrated? They shook their heads. $800 million. That's what I paid to buy it back. The company you sold for $1,000 is now worth nearly $1 billion. My father sank into one of the visitor chairs. Son, we're so sorry. I'm not telling you this to make you feel bad. I said, surprising myself by meaning it. I'm telling you because I want you to understand something. Success doesn't always look the way you expect it to. Sometimes it looks like a teenager coding in his bedroom at midnight. Sometimes it looks like a silly app. Can you ever forgive us? My mother asked. I walked to the window, looking out at the city where I'd rebuilt my dreams from scratch. I forgave you a long time ago. When I was building Shadow Securities, I realized something. If you hadn't sold SecureShare, I might never have learned how to fight for what I believed in. I might never have become who I am today. And who is that? My father asked quietly. I turned back to them, smiling slightly. Someone who knows exactly what his dreams are worth. In the months that followed, SecureShare Shadow's value doubled. The complete encryption system, finally reunited, revolutionized digital security just as I'd always known it would. My parents? They finally stopped sending me law school brochures. Instead, they framed the magazine covers featuring their son, the tech prodigy who bought back his own company. Marcus Wayne? He retired to a small island somewhere, probably regretting the day he thought he could steal a teenager's dreams for $1,000. And me, I kept that $1,000 check, framed it and hung it in my office, not as a reminder of betrayal, but as proof that sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even, it's getting ahead. The silly app that my parents sold for $1,000 now protects data for companies worldwide. But more importantly, it stands as a testament to every young dreamer who's ever been told their ideas don't matter. Because sometimes, those silly ideas are worth millions. You just have to believe in them enough to fight for them, even if you have to buy them back yourself. The scent of vanilla and warm butter filled my kitchen as I pulled another batch of cookies from the oven. Not just any cookies, Grandma Rose's Secret Symphony cookies, the recipe that had started everything. The same recipe my family still thought of as nothing more than a quaint hobby. Just a small-town baker, my sister Diana had said at last month's family dinner, her voice dripping with condescension. It's sweet, really. While the rest of us built real careers, Emma's still playing with Grandma's recipe box. If only they knew that tomorrow morning, Sweet Legacy Artisanal Foods would go public with an estimated valuation of $890 million. I smiled, carefully transferring the golden brown cookies to a cooling rack. The secret wasn't just in the ingredients, though Grandma Rose's blend of spices was extraordinary. It was an understanding that sometimes the biggest dreams start with the smallest details. 5 years ago, I was working a soul-crushing job in corporate finance, just like Diana wanted. I had the corner office, the designer suits, the real career my family respected. But every Sunday, I would bake Grandma's cookies, following her handwritten recipe card exactly. It was my way of keeping her memory alive. Then came the day that changed everything. My coworker Sarah tried one of my cookies during a coffee break. Oh my God, she moaned, closing her eyes. Emma, these are incredible. Why aren't you selling these? I laughed it off, but her words stuck with me. That night, I pulled out Grandma's recipe box, the one she'd left specifically to me in her will. My sister had rolled her eyes at the inheritance. Great, Emma gets a box of old recipe cards while I get the beach house. Totally fair. But as I went through the box again, I noticed something I'd missed before. Hidden in the back was a thin leather journal, its pages filled with Grandma's elegant handwriting. It wasn't just recipes. It was her dream for a business empire, one she'd never had the chance to build. My dearest Emma, The first page read, "I'm leaving you these recipes because you're the only one who understands that success isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet. It's about creating something that brings joy, something authentic in the world of mass production. You have my recipes now, but more importantly, you have my dream." I stayed up all night reading her journal. Grandma Rose hadn't just been a talented baker, she'd been a visionary. Her notes detailed plans for an artisanal food company, one that would bring old-world quality to modern consumers. She even developed preservation techniques that would allow her baked goods to be shipped nationwide without losing their homemade taste. The next morning, I walked into my boss's office and quit my job. "You're making a huge mistake," he warned. "Nobody leaves Anderson and Mitchell to become a baker." My family's reaction was even worse. "Have you lost your mind?" Diana demanded when I told them. "You're throwing away a six-figure salary to bake cookies." My parents exchanged worried looks. "Honey," my mother said gently, "maybe you should take some time to think about this. Your grandmother's recipes are lovely, but they're not exactly a business plan." But I had something they didn't know about: $50,000 in savings and Grandma Rose's detailed notes on scaling up production while maintaining quality. More importantly, I had her vision. I started small, renting space in a commercial kitchen during off hours. Every morning, I baked batches of Grandma's cookies, packaged them carefully following her preservation methods, and delivered them to local coffee shops. The response was immediate. People couldn't get enough of them. Orders started pouring in. "It's just beginner's luck," Diana said when she heard about my early success. "Wait until the novelty wears off." But it didn't wear off. Instead, something magical happened. A food blogger tried my cookies and wrote about them. The post went viral. Suddenly, I was shipping cookies nationwide, struggling to keep up with demand. That's when Sarah, my former coworker, called. "Emma, I need to talk to you about investment opportunities," she said. "My venture capital firm is very interested in artisanal food companies, and what you're doing with these traditional recipes, it's exactly what we're looking for." I almost dropped the phone. Sarah wasn't just a former coworker. She was now a partner at one of the biggest food and beverage investment firms in the country. The meeting with her partners was surreal. I brought samples of everything I was producing, not just the cookies, but all the other recipes I developed from Grandma's notes. Artisanal breads, small batch jams, specialty pastries that could be shipped anywhere while maintaining their fresh-baked quality. "This is remarkable," one partner said, examining my preservation techniques. "And these are all family recipes. My grandmother's," I explained. She was ahead of her time. They offered me $2 million in seed funding that day. Within 6 months, Sweet Legacy had its own production facility. Within a year, we were in high-end grocery stores nationwide. 2 years later, we had a line of retail bakery cafes in major cities. All while my family still thought I was just running a small local bakery. "At least she seems happy," I overheard my mother telling Diana last Christmas. Though it's a shame she's not using her business degree for something more substantial. If they'd ever actually visited my little bakery, they would have seen the corporate headquarters next door, the fleet of delivery trucks, the hundreds of employees. But they were too busy with their real careers to check. Diana had made partner at her law firm. My parents bragged about it constantly. Meanwhile, I was quietly building an empire based on Grandma Rose's dream. Yesterday, Diana called to remind me about the upcoming family reunion. "Try to dress professionally this time," she said. "Not like a baker, and bring those cookies everyone likes. It's the least you can do since some of us are actually successful." I agreed pleasantly, not mentioning the Wall Street Journal reporter who'd been shadowing me all week for their cover story on Sweet Legacy's IPO. Not mentioning the Forbes 30 Under 30 photo shoot scheduled for next month. Not mentioning that tomorrow morning, when the stock market opened, I would become one of the wealthiest women in the state. Now, standing in my test kitchen, one of 12 in our development facility, I carefully packed a box of cookies for the family reunion. They were perfect, just like Grandma Rose had taught me. Simple, authentic, and worth more than anyone had guessed. My phone buzzed. Another message from our PR team about tomorrow's announcement. The press release was ready. The media coverage was lined up. In less than 24 hours, everyone would know that the small-town baker had built a multi-million-dollar company. I picked up Grandma's old recipe box, now displayed prominently in my office alongside our company's many awards. "We did it, Grandma," I whispered. "We built your dream." And tomorrow, my family would finally understand that sometimes the biggest success stories start with a simple recipe card and the courage to believe in something everyone else dismisses. The morning of the IPO, I woke before dawn, a habit I developed during my early baking days. But instead of heading to a small commercial kitchen, I made my way to Sweet Legacy's corporate headquarters, a gleaming six-story building with our signature copper and cream logo shining above the entrance. Sarah met me in the lobby, already vibrating with excitement. "The trading floor opens in 2 hours. Are you ready?" "Born ready," I replied, smoothing down my tailored blazer. No flour-dusted apron today. I had a different role to play. My executive team was waiting in the conference room, along with our investors and board members. The wall-mounted screens displayed financial news channels, all buzzing about the artisanal food phenomenon about to go public. "There's already significant pre-market interest," our CFO reported. "Initial indicators suggest we might open even higher than projected." My phone buzzed. A text from Diana. "Don't forget the cookies for tonight's reunion, and try to dress appropriately for once." I smiled, tucking the phone away. In a few hours, my sister would have more to worry about than my outfit choice. The next 2 hours passed in a blur of final preparations and media interviews. I had just finished a call with CNBC when my assistant rushed in. "Ms. Harrison, you need to see this." She handed me her tablet, displaying a local news website. My stomach dropped. There, in the lifestyle section, was a photo of my parents' house, accompanied by the headline, "Local family's secret recipe becomes national sensation." Someone had leaked the story early. "Your mother's already called 3 times, my assistant added apologetically. Before I could respond, Sarah burst into the office. "Emma, we're ready. It's time." I straightened my shoulders and grabbed my grandmother's recipe box. My good luck charm for important moments. "Let's do this." The trading floor was electric with anticipation. As we watched the opening bell countdown, I thought about my journey. From a tiny commercial kitchen to this moment, about to take from Grandma's vision, I corrected her. She had plans for all of this. The production methods, the preservation techniques, even the business model. She just never had the opportunity to make it happen, but she trusted me to do it for her. My mother was still reading the newspaper article, tears forming in her eyes. "It says here you're revolutionizing the artisanal food industry, that you found a way to maintain homemade quality in large-scale production." Using Grandma's techniques, I nodded. She was brilliant. She understood that people would always crave authentic, homemade taste. She just needed someone to believe in her dream enough to make it real. "Why did he tell us?" my father asked softly, "when you started becoming successful?" I sat down, taking a cookie for myself. "Remember 3 years ago when I tried to tell you about opening our second production facility?" Diana interrupted to announce her law firm partnership, and everyone spent the rest of dinner talking about that. Or last Christmas, when I mentioned our expansion plans and Mom suggested I take some business classes at the community college. They had the grace to look embarrassed. My company public. The bell rang. The numbers started moving. Opening at $42 per share, someone called out. Above projections. $45, $48, $52. By the time the dust settled, Sweet Legacy's stock had opened at $57 per share, valuing the company at just over $890 million. My phone exploded with notifications. "Mom, Emma, why is there a news crew outside our house?" "Diana, what's going on?" "My colleagues are asking about Sweet Legacy." "Dad, please call immediately. This must be a mistake." I handed my phone to my assistant. "Hold all family calls for now. I'll see them at the reunion tonight." The rest of the day was a whirlwind of press conferences, interviews, and congratulatory meetings. By late afternoon, Sweet Legacy's stock had settled at $62 per share, exceeding even our most optimistic projections. "Ready for the family reunion?" Sarah asked as we left the office. I patted the box of cookies on my passenger seat, made from Grandma's original recipe, baked by me personally this morning despite having an entire production facility at my disposal. As ready as I'll ever be. The reunion was being held at Diana's house, her pride and joy. Bought with her law partner's salary, I pulled up in my Tesla, noting how her expression soured as she watched me park. "You're late," she called from the porch. "And what are you wearing?" I looked down at my designer suit, something appropriate. Inside, the family was gathered around the TV, which was, ironically, playing CNBC's coverage of Sweet Legacy's IPO. My mother was sitting frozen on the couch, staring at the screen where my official CEO headshot was displayed next to stock performance graphs. "Emma," my father said slowly, "would you like to explain why you're on national television?" I set the cookie box on the coffee table, right next to the newspaper featuring my company's story. "Because Sweet Legacy Artisanal Foods went public today. We're now valued at just under $1 billion. The silence was deafening. Deanna found her voice first. "This is impossible. You're a baker. You make cookies in a little shop downtown." "Actually," I said, opening the cookie box, "I'm the CEO of the fastest growing artisanal food company in the country. The little shop downtown was just our first retail location. We now have 68 stores across 12 states, 3 production facilities, and over 800 employees." My mother picked up the newspaper with trembling hands. "But all these years, you never said anything. Would you have listened?" I asked quietly. "Every time I tried to talk about the business, you changed the subject." Diana called it my little hobby. "Dad kept sending me job postings for real careers. We just wanted what was best for you," my father protested. "No," I corrected him, "you wanted what looked best to others. A corporate job. A prestigious title. Something you could brag about at dinner parties. You never actually asked what I was building." I pulled Grandma's recipe box from my bag and set it on the table. Grandma Rose understood. That's why she left me her recipes instead of beach house money. She knew I would see what you all missed. That these weren't just recipes. They were the foundation of an empire. Deanna picked up one of the cookies, staring at it like she'd never seen it before. "All this from Grandma's cookies." "The truth is," I continued, "somewhere along the way, I realized that your approval didn't matter as much as honoring Grandma's legacy. So I stopped trying to make you understand and focused on building something meaningful." Diana was scrolling through her phone, her face growing paler. You're on the Forbes 40 under 40 list. Your net worth. Oh my God." "About that," I smiled. "Remember the beach house Grandma left you? The one you said was so much better than a box of old recipe cards. I bought the one next door last month. The closing papers came through this morning." My phone buzzed. Another message from the office. Our stock had closed at $68 per share. Sweet Legacy was now officially a $1 billion company. "I should go," I said, standing up. "We have a celebration dinner with our board of directors tonight. But first," I opened Grandma's recipe box and pulled out her journal. "I think it's time you all read this. Maybe then you'll understand what Grandma Rose knew all along, that sometimes the greatest legacies don't look like what you expect." As I walked to my car, I heard Deanna call out behind me, "Emma, wait." I turned. She was holding one of the cookies, looking at it like she was seeing it for the first time. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "We all are. We should have believed in you." "No," I replied, "you should have believed in Grandma. I just followed her recipe, not just for cookies, but for success." She knew that anything worth building takes time, patience, and the courage to ignore people who tell you your dreams are too small. That night, at the celebration dinner, I raised a toast to Grandma Rose. Her portrait hung in our headquarters lobby, her recipe box displayed proudly in a custom-made case beneath it. To the woman who knew that sometimes the sweetest success stories start in the kitchen, I said, and to everyone who's ever been told their dreams are just a hobby. Later, as I walked through our flagship store, watching customers line up for Grandma's cookies, now famous nationwide, I smiled thinking about how wrong my family had been. I wasn't just a baker. I was an entrepreneur who had turned a box of recipe cards into a $1 billion legacy. And somewhere, I knew Grandma Rose was smiling too. The next morning, I arrived at my office to find Diana waiting in the lobby. She looked different, humbled somehow. "I brought coffee," she said, holding up a cafe bag. "And I was wondering if you might share another one of Grandma's recipes with me. Not to sell," she added quickly, "just to bake. I think maybe I need to understand what you and Grandma saw that the rest of us missed." I led her up to my office, where Grandma's recipe box sat on my desk. It was never just about the recipes, I told her, opening the box. It was about believing in something everyone else dismissed as simple. About seeing the extraordinary potential in ordinary things. "Like cookies?" she asked. "Like dreams," I corrected her, pulling out Grandma's journal. Now let me show you what Grandma Rose really left us. Not just recipes, but a blueprint for turning passion into empire. Sometimes the biggest successes start with the smallest ingredients: flour, butter, sugar, and the courage to believe in something everyone else underestimates. Just ask my family. They finally understand that their small-town baker had the biggest dreams of all.